Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps: Bob the Dragon, Cat Crab Lobster, Data Magnet, Dark Machine, Bezic, Try Again 95, Pudic Yol, Astrea the Dreamer, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Athelia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Bucksmorm. Thank you very much. Story number 1. Patience is a virtue. Written by a lone donut. No other intelligent spacefaring life form knows the concept of sunk cost fallacy. For most of them, wars can be ended simply by presenting their capability for further war, and the weaker one yields. Humans, however, will take anyone on out of pure spite. The shrieks filled the small war room. Not the sound of a tortured individual or the cries of a defeated foe begging for mercy. These shrieks were the kind of shrieks of pure, primal frustration. The Dresk has shown that they had the capability to make war in the way the humans could never match. They didn't have the industrial capacity, the trade network, or the technology to take the Dresk Republic one-on-one. Nor did they have the training, military numbers, or population to sustain the conflict in any meaningful way. On paper. That was the kicker, wasn't it? These hairless mammalian bipeds seemed to move forward not on logic, reason, or skill. Intuition was not the name of their species' highest skill set. No. Humans and their formerly fractured empire seemed to operate purely on spite and stubbornness. The Dresk has requested a concession of a miner system for mining, a system not previously even mined by the humans. In return, the owner of the system would have been granted 15% of all earnings from the system, an extremely generous offer. The response had been a swift no, bolded in a particularly scripted font. Someone had to go produce paper and ink solely for the purpose of sending the response. Within a month, a mining operation was set up. The Republic had then agreed to take the system by force. A simple operation. Park a fleet in orbit of the barely habitable planet, used as a mining facility headquarters, and besiege the planet. A few planetary rotations, they would surrender. And now, the humans would gain nothing from the conquest but shame. In and out, an easy operation. Especially when humanity was given a quick rundown of what they would be up against. So the fleet arrived, the spaceport and military installations, if you could call it that, were destroyed, and a letter of request for surrender was sent. The Republic had expected the matter to be closed. The term "get fecked" had taken the translator a few hours to figure out, but once it had been deciphered, the annoyance grew. What possible resistance could less than 1 million humans put up in a backwater system? A blockade was placed around the planet, and mining vessels were brought into the asteroid belt to begin extraction. But the mining vessels were hit in an aggressive hit-and-run tactics. The blockade was struggling to keep supply ships from landing and supplying the planet, and the cost to keep up operation was growing day by day. Maintenance ships were brought in, more naval presence, anything to stop the attacks and starve out the squatters. Research was conducted, in hopes of better understanding the four, and the Dresk commander had all but rolled his eyes, or would have if he had muscles to move his eyes, at the study of these creatures. They had risen to the apex of their species, not through the fastest reflexes, sharpest claws, or toughest armor. No. They had simply kept following their prey until it simply laid down and died. That was it. They were just more persistent than their enemies. 2 solar cycles into the invasion, and with minimal cost the humans were actually winning the conflict. Republic public opinion of the occupation was dwindling, and due to the constant setbacks, the mining facilities were not even worth keeping operational. Military losses were all past acceptable limits, and the government was starting to think that the entire venture was a waste of resources. Eventually, they were forced to simply pull out. The cost to maintain it simply too great to be worth it. They had even been forced to pay their own concessions for the resources the humans had expended, leapfrogging their technology by decades. The commander had of course had the blame pinned on him. Reading the letter of recall, he was the one who had botched the operation. Or that was how the government and military would spin it. The failure to hold a single system from an inferior species. A laughingstock in the streets, and a scapegoat in the chambers. Dresk researchers spent years studying the human behavior, the ability to put resources into a strategy that involves sitting and expecting their desired outcome in spite of any reasonable creature knowing that it wasn't worth it. And, in the future, in the backwater bar, the Dresk command of the invasion, long since disgraced, was sought out by some cocksure diplomats looking to invade a small human colony on their borders. They presented their idea, battle plans, and proof of combat superiority to the humans. On paper, they were the superior combatant. They asked the commander what he thought of the outcome would be, hope in their eyes and fire in their stomachs. The Dresk, taking a sip of his drink, let out a noise as close to a laugh as his species had. "You'll get fecked." End of story. Story number 2. Crushing Expectations, written by Squiggly Story Studios. But Father quacked, whined, tightening her grip on the human tighter. "I want this one." Sighed, letting several pheromone-laden froth clouds into the air to intensify his disgruntlement. "You can't have this one," he hissed. "There are plenty of other multi-limbed constructs for you to consume, but this one is already betrothed." He flexed the muscly tentacles that supported as much of his body and mouth. "I don't want to consume it, Father. I want him to be my betrothed." "You what?" "My betrothed," she insisted. "But why?" Her father looked at the very small, rigid being, who, for the most part, seemed to just exude a cloud of mix of fear and exhilaration. "We were meant to be together. He sent me messages over Vox. You wouldn't understand." "Really, I don't." Stared down at the tiny thing, wondering what the spawn of his could ever see in such a plain creature. "You otherwise engaged student, why would you attempt to woo my daughter when you have already secured a union of your own?" I didn't know, Your Majesty," the human tried to answer. Well, one of the Akakit's daughter's many tentacles coiled around his head. "It was all a bit of fun on the voice boards, but I didn't realize how serious it was. Are you stating that my daughter's affection means nothing to you but entertainment?" The alien overlord fumed. No, please. It was all a misunderstanding," the human pleaded. "He's mine now, Father. You cannot tear us apart," Kakawakat proclaimed her love. "And your other union? Are your parents aware of your misconduct?" Akakat snarled, baring his many jagged teeth. "Oh, for the love of Cthulhu, please don't inform them," the human begged. "You are ashamed of your transgressions. Good! And then end this foolishness now, or I'll indeed inform them." Akakat gurgled smugly, having finally made the puny fleshling cower to his liking. "All right," the human sighed sadly. "Patrick," Kakawakat stammered her lover's name. Kakawakat. "But you're a multi-dimensional hive-mind heiress, and I'm a cross-system mining magnate shareholder. It would never work out," Patrick admitted. But, what about Alpha Centauri?" Kakawakat cried. "That system isn't big enough for the both of us to consume." Patrick shook his head in defeat. "It's been fun. A lot of fun. And I'll never forget our planned conquest of Omeron Bay 7. Maybe one day corporations and hive minds can put aside their differences, and we can control systematically all life and means of production. But until then, I have to honor my contract and facilitate the merger between the Shinwei Yutan, Umbrella, and Pop's friendly robot company." "Patrick!" Kakawakat wiped the mucus from her leaking eyes. "You'll be fine without me. I know you'll gestate the entire system in no time," Patrick replied encouragingly. "You always know what to say." She slowly recoiled her tendrils from the human and slithered to her father's side. "Okay, I'm ready to go now," Kakawakat said quietly. Her father looked down at the tiny human. "You have plans to conquer Omeron Base 7? The human smiled. Physically, systematically, and lawfully, it would only take 5 years, depending on the demands of the nutritional paste for slow-released radiation poison populace. Patrick replied, looking at his wrist comms. Perhaps I shouldn't have been so hasty, Akakakat murmured, licking his lips at the thought of consuming an industrious planet. Kakawakt! Human Patrick, do you have time to discuss these plans? The human grinned with dark, black eyes. I can clear my schedule. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.